Poems to a Listener, readings and conversation with contemporary poets.
Jesus spoke metaphorically about houses built on rock and sand. I don't have to use continental drift, unheard of then, to challenge the metaphor. Nor do I want to. I respect what Jesus may have said. Record be damned. He must have said something I wish I believed, but Jesus, God, there isn't any rock.
Poet William Bronk. I'm Henry Lyman. Welcome to Poems to a Listener. The poem we just heard mentions the biblical metaphor of the house built on rock that stands and the house built on sand that collapses. The metaphor is called into question, the poem suggests, by the fact that rocks, land, and even whole continents are perpetually shifting.
Rocks move. They don't move maybe as readily as sand, but nevertheless rock moves. The plates of the earth move.
There's molten rock under there.
Yeah, there's molten rock underneath. And for that matter, all sorts of things happen to houses that have nothing to do with their foundations. But even without continental drift, we know that there is no immobility.
No rock.
No rock. Real estate. You know, when we first came here, these houses were all empty. Some of us made them after a fashion livable again, but as you can see, there are parts we don't use, and pieces we've added on or taken off, rooms we've divided, things like that to try to suit us more. You need a permit, but some of us go ahead anyway. Those houses there were just put up. They weren't here. People find that easier. I think it's wrong, and up back there are more houses like this. Roofs good, walls solid, dark maybe and strange, brushing trees around, but even so, vacant to be had. You know, I wonder who it was that built them. They weren't like us.
We're approaching a kind of settlement here. Number of houses.
There are old houses which are beginning to be occupied again.
Do these old houses represent a particular kind of form or structure for you in your mind?
They represent a culture which has lasted.
Something traditional that's been here.
Yeah, a traditional form.
Mm-hmm. That is there for us and that we can occupy?
That we can occupy. And we may want to make a few alterations.
Yeah, if we get permission to do so.
Mm-hmm. Well, even if we don't.
Yeah, you can do it without the permit.
Yeah.
Then there are the new houses. These new ones that were just put up.
Yeah, they were just put up. Without regard for what's there.
So there's something kind of presumptuous about them? A little obscene, perhaps?
No, not presumptuous or obscene. Simply deprived. The house that doesn't house. I have my own place and live there alone. In some ways we shape each other, perhaps. It's not the house that lives me, though something does. I think of whatever lives us as another house that we don't have to live in or even know about. It has space we can go to. Not to stay, but go home again to the smaller rooms of our own, wondering at size, at immensity where we sense a shelter, and have no sense of wall, where there seems concern for us, though no one there, and we feel thankful for what we give, our temporal tininess, and begin to love ourselves as worthy deservers, as though we were ones who were loved, and go bemused back home, alone there.
There are two houses here. The one we live in, which perhaps shapes us a bit as we shape it. And the other house, the one that lives us. You talk about that as being itself a kind of shelter.
Oh, yes. There are other shelters besides houses.
The one that shelters us is the universe, right? I mean, totality, immensity, the outside.
Well, it's not the physical universe, but immensity as an abstraction, simply the idea of immensity.
And yet it shelters us, according to the poem.
I find it sheltering in the sense of not confining, of liberating.
Mm-hmm. Because there are no walls, or because you have no
There
sense.
are no walls.
You have no sense of wall, it is therefore liberating, hence sheltering.
Mm-hmm.
We can give ourselves to it occasionally.
Yeah. We give our tininess to this immensity and feel that tiny as we are and immense as it is, we don't become insignificant in that environment.
And then we go home again.
We go back to our confinements and to our own nature and feel that it is less confining, that we can even be alone and not feel lonely. A consolation of cold. Things don't move much in winter. You can go to bed early and expect in the morning to find them right where you left them. A consolation of the cold, and we need it. Our lives are a strange experience. I don't care how active we are in the world, it's still as though we never went out of the house or got up in the morning. Outside is where it goes on.
The consolation of the cold is that things appear a little more stable in the wintertime. We tend not to move them around so much or move ourselves around as much. And so there's an apparent stability which is necessary for us.
Well, it isn't actually any more stable than it is at any time of the year. But
an apparent stability.
Our own slowing down maybe makes us feel that everything has slowed down around us, which it hasn't really. The things that really happen, apart from us, are still going on.
Mm-hmm. And that is that it that you speak of there at the end of the poem? Outside is where it goes on?
That it, yeah. Mm-hmm. Whatever it is.
Do we ever really leave the house? While we're alive, at least. It's as though we never went out of the house or got up in the morning.
Well, we may go out, but we take some of the house with us. We don't forget where we live. We remember what we're going home to. We know our addresses. the body. Watch it. That's the body. What goes on next door? Here you can see it. Turn out the light. Their luminousness will show more in our dark. What are they doing? We seldom know for sure, but what a pleasure it is to watch. Look now. I think he hit her, did he? We can't hear what they say. Sometimes in summer a little. Then when the windows are open, but most of the time we guess. It's like a play. He said, she said, write your own lines as you will, or leave them blank, blank as they are. Or are they? You look at a back sometimes and know it's talking. There are even times it's almost all we want to do, to go right over and move right in. But after all, we live here, not there, and have, as you know, for a long time. These people, they come and go. But it's fascinating. There's always something new.
Watching the neighbors is always an interesting pastime.
Particularly if the neighbor is your own self, which the body is.
Yeah.
We have a fascinating physical existence which sometimes surprises us, and sometimes we feel is not really us, and sometimes we would wish it were, and we divorce ourselves from it by saying, well, that's not really us, it's somebody next door.
So we stand at a distance from it then, and watch it as if we were watching a play, a dumb show, a pantomime.
Because it goes on seemingly almost without us.
But we'd like to be conjoined with ourselves, integrated, united with the body.
One problem is that these people, they come and go. Our physical feelings are not uniform. They move in and out. So that the fact that there's likely to be a new show tomorrow is partly what keeps us fascinated.
There's always something new.
Yeah, there's always something new.
A little bursitis here, and
a
stubbed toe there.
So that there's two houses next door to each other, and the body lives in one of them, and we live in the other one. Wants and questions. I don't know who you are in the door, in the room there with me, naked beside my bed, lying in it. What do you want of me? You wear those skins and bones, taunt me. You leave them behind when you go, turning, taking. I don't want those skins and bones, diverse disguises. I don't know what I want, ever wanted.
Who is this figure?
I don't know. It says so. I don't know who you are in the door.
It's someone who takes on disguises, leaves disguises with you. Someone who's very intimate with you. Someone who is naked beside your bed, lying in it. Almost as if it were you.
I can only say, as it says in the poem, what do you want of me? Someone comes by. Come, evil, into my house. The door is open as it always was, though not that you were expected. But I should have known. Perhaps I did. No matter. You're here. What now? We have to rearrange, I suppose, and I don't know how. You'll need a different name. Not that you care, or care whatever adjustment I make. Sit down. You're already at home. More than I am. We'll live.
So, you get a housemate.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the family.
Evil with a capital E.
Mm-hmm.
What
Right.
sort of things do you associate with evil?
Social evil and our own misdeeds.
And they move right in. Yeah.
They move in. They make themselves at home.
With certain adjustments that you have to make.
Yeah, and we don't call it evil necessarily. You'll need a different name, I suppose. And evil is perfectly willing to be called by other names. It doesn't care.
The suggestion is that it will take over, or at least occupy the house more than the owner does. Be more at home there.
Well, certainly as much. We're closely related.
And cohabit.
We cohabit and we get along. We'll live. The strong room of the house. We can go by that door a dozen times in a day. And do that for years, maybe. Without thinking what's in there. Paying it any heed. Or needing to. Why look in? It's as much as though the room weren't part of the house, though we know, of course, it is. We think of it in passing and dismiss the thought. Other times, prompted perhaps by some occurrence, we pause to consider whether it might be better to sort things over there. Maybe throw some out. Aren't we the strong ones, though? Aren't we here as masters of the house? We are indeed until one day we come by the door, or where the door was once, and the door is gone. In the fetidness of the air, we can barely breathe. Something nourishes as a plant might in the dirt of the floor, grows in the light from the window or in the dark at night. Horror is what it is called. It is the whole strength of the house. We'll be there when we move out, hang deep in the cellar hole when the house is gone.
There's a secret room in the house.
It's not secret. Everyone knows it's there.
Well, it's ignored.
Yeah, it's ignored. The door is kept closed.
Sometimes we think of perhaps making some changes, cleaning it up.
Yeah, we think that there's some way we could get rid of it. As masters of the house, we can straighten up that room. We don't have to put up with that kind of thing.
But one day it starts to grow and take over.
Well, it grows all the time, or seems to.
And at one point the door seems to just fall away.
Well, so we don't know where the door went, but suddenly it's gone.
Yeah. Horror, you call it.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of horror?
Well, there are various sorts, but they're all horror.
Aspects of ourselves which are...
Aspects of human experience. Probably aspects of reality which are even apart from human.
Interestingly enough, the horror takes over to the point that it becomes the strength of the house. It becomes the master. It will remain when the owner is gone.
Yes.
Even when the house is gone.
Yes. It is an ultimate reality. The conclusion. I thought we stood at the door of another world, and it might open, and we go in. Well, there is that door, and such a world.
This door, this is a different ultimate reality.
And this one didn't open. But it's there, and there is such a world behind it.
You had always thought it was there, and that it would open to some kind of heaven, so to speak?
I wouldn't have called it a heaven, but if you want to call it a heaven, you can call it a heaven.
I mean, the first part of the poem, maybe I'm way off the track here, but the first part of the poem seems to be talking about almost one's religious expectations.
It wouldn't have to be religion. Yeah. It could be simply a social, political expectation, or personal wonder.
Mm-hmm.
It's a door of possibility which, a world of possibility which doesn't stop existing simply because it's impossible. There is that door in such a world. Overnight. Even the house. Up early, I look at it in the half-dark and sense its own selfness. Puzzling. The wooden remote of my old familiar. Its grace and kindness remembered were just that I stayed there. I could have been anybody, and I'll be checking out. Vacancy. The world outside even more. The much I may have loved it, it wasn't mine. There it is. It hadn't to do with me. I've lived here for 70 years, and I feel an identity with the house, but as the title says, when it comes right down to it, it's not much more than an overnight. If the house doesn't burn down before I do, it'll go on after I move out.
And someone else will move in and make the house their own in their way. A
house that you live in gets to be home, and it has what appears to be a grace and kindness toward you. It seems to have a personal concern for you and a personal shape. And as we live in the house of the world, we get used to it.
It works the same way?
It works the same way. It seems that the world can really not get along without us, but the world can very easily get along without us.
But can we get along without the world?
I don't know. I'll let you know later. I'll write you a letter. Housing the homeless. We are here like castaways from who knows where. And who knows where is here. Whoever here is human is who we are. So whom to ask? But we know it isn't ours. So huge, and we too clumsy too for its tininess, as we find places where our wrong size seems to fit, or make some place our size to defy uneasiness and idiocy here, and we have it to make the best of. Or else concede the great disparities, alienate to them a property not ours to claim. Let them humble us, homeless, in ungrudged place in their spacious world, housed in the wonder of it, and comforted.
Now we're outside. Any house. Homeless.
Mm-hmm.
And faced with such immensity, we have two responses. One, to hide from it, to somehow create another house, a small one, something we can fit into.
Mm-hmm. Find an old packing case.
And pack ourselves into it.
Mm.
But there's another choice, and that is to concede to that immensity.
Accept our homelessness. Accept that there's never going to be a real house for us here. Any house we make is a downgrading of the wonder of the immensity that we find ourselves in.
That in itself can be a home or a house.
Housed in the wonder of it.
Mm-hmm.
Say, okay, we're here. Who needs a house?
Poet William Bronk, author of Life Supports, New and Uncollected Poems. Many of his books are published by the Elizabeth Press. The Mild Day is published by Talisman House. I'm Henry Lyman. Thanks for being with us.
Poems to a Listener was produced by Henry Lyman in cooperation with WFCR, Amherst, Massachusetts. This program was supported by the Witter Binner Foundation for Poetry and the National Endowment for the Arts.